This movie once dethroned Titanic for the #1 spot at the box office. Sounds a bit hard to believe. Right. But behind that victory was a mess that even the cast didn't want to mention. Weird decisions, hidden scenes, and at least one person who took the role just to get the money to do something else. The following 15 weirdest facts about Lost in Space 1998 will show you what this blockbuster movie hid from its fans. 1. Lost in Space dethroned Titanic, then failed right after. In early 1998, James Cameron's Titanic dominated the #1 spot at the North American box office for 15 consecutive weeks, instead of cooling down after 2 to 3 weeks as usual. This movie crushed all competitors from December 1997 to early April 1998. Hollywood studios at that time helplessly accepted a bitter truth: every work they released in theaters was only competing for second place. But that #1 streak officially ended on the weekend of April 3, 1998. That was when Lost in Space hit theaters. In its very first days of release, this movie sold a massive amount of tickets and pushed Titanic to second place. In the Hollywood filmmaking world at that time, this event immediately became the talk of the town. Industry insiders even gave Lost in Space the nickname the iceberg, meaning a hidden iceberg. The reason is simple and practical in real life. An iceberg sank the Titanic and on the box office charts. Lost in Space was the second iceberg to do just that. However, the story then took a completely different turn. Lost in Space only attracted viewers for exactly one single week. Entering the second week, ticket sales plummeted drastically. Audiences who watched it reviewed the plot as a mess, while critics continuously wrote articles criticizing the script quality. This downfall happened so fast that New Line Cinema had to make an abrupt U-turn before the movie premiered. They had already made detailed plans for Part 2, Part 3, and a mass production of tie-in toys. But after just 7 days of observing actual ticket sales, the studio had to immediately cancel all contracts. They single-handedly wiped out a massive movie project that had just begun. The movie overthrew a historic record, but ultimately failed so fast that no one wants to mention it, contrary to the studio's expectation of a multi-billion-dollar project. There was one main actor who didn't care at all whether the movie would succeed or fail. That is the reason that leads us to the second fact. 2. Gary Oldman acted in this movie just to get money to make another movie when the Lost in Space project started its casting process. Gary Oldman was the first to agree and sign the contract at that time. He told the press in an interview that he wanted to be part of a family movie. He explained that he had played too many psychologically heavy roles and wanted a light-hearted movie so he could take his kids to the theater. This reason sounded very reasonable and showed the care of a father for his children. But a few years later, Gary Oldman himself bluntly told the truth. The only reason he accepted the role wearing a villain suit in outer space was for the paycheck. At that time, Gary Oldman was paying out of pocket to direct his directorial debut named Nil by Mouth 1997. The movie he directed wasn't a commercial film to sell tickets. It was a raw reflection of addiction and domestic violence in working-class neighborhoods in London. Because the movie's content was too realistic and hard to watch, he couldn't find investors. His own funds were running out. To get the money to finish this personal project, he had to find a high-paying job to get cash fast. Lost in Space appeared right at that time. He used his entire salary from playing the villain in Lost in Space to pay for the operational costs of the Nil by Mouth crew. Eventually, the movie he directed was a huge success and won BAFTA, a major British film award. The truth here is very clear: a serious social realism film was completed thanks to the money paid for a somewhat comical role in outer space. So, if you were an actor needing money to pursue a personal passion, would you accept acting in a movie where you knew the script wasn't excellent just to get the paycheck, like Gary Oldman? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Gary Oldman taking the role just for money might surprise the audience about the actor's true intentions. However, the film's director and production team worked very seriously. They were willing to put a lot of effort into the scenes, even using unbelievably manual methods to create the best visuals on screen. 3. The movie's most famous scene didn't use CGI and nobody believes it, although the script wasn't highly rated. It's undeniable that the technical team of Lost in Space worked very meticulously. They even fooled the eyes of millions of viewers with a manual filmmaking method. In the movie, there is a very famous scene featuring the character played by Matt LeBlanc. It's the scene where his space helmet automatically shatters into small pieces and slides down, revealing the actor's face. If you open the movie and rewatch this scene right now, you will see it moves very smoothly. Most people, even those working in the film industry, assume this scene was created using computer-generated imagery, or CGI. Back in 1998, creating a moving CGI scene this close to a human face was considered very difficult and expensive. But the truth is, there was not a single detail of computer graphics in that scene. Every image you see on screen was made by hand. The production team asked Matt LeBlanc to perform this scene twice. The first time, he wore the real helmet. The second time, he wore nothing and replicated the exact same gestures. After getting the 2 clips, the editors started working. They used a manual editing technique called rotoscoping. They cut each real photo of the helmet from the first video, then pasted them onto the second video. They had to sit and arrange every single metal piece moving across the actor's face frame by frame. Decades later, when visual effects experts reanalyzed this scene, they couldn't believe their eyes. They confirmed there was absolutely no computer-generated intervention in this scene. The Lost in Space filmmaking team used a standard manual compositing technique to trick viewers' eyes for 25 years. The meticulousness in the hand editing stage we just mentioned was only a small part of the production team's efforts. Not only did they do things manually, but they were also pioneers of a cinematic technology that the whole world later credited to another movie. 4. This movie invented bullet time a year before The Matrix, and nobody remembers. If you ask anyone about the bullet time technique, a filming technique that freezes action while the camera moves around the subject, they will immediately say it's the technology that made the 1999 movie The Matrix famous. The Wachowskis used it to change action filmmaking forever. But the truth is, Lost in Space executed an early version of this technique in 1998, which is 1 year before The Matrix. In the scene where the spaceship activates its hyperdrive, the director froze the entire crew, suspending them in mid-air, while the camera slowly panned around them. VFX history researchers and even the official Wikipedia page on bullet time have to acknowledge Lost in Space as one of the first movies to apply this technology on the big screen. So why does nobody remember it? The reason is simple, because the movie was so bad. When audiences watch a movie, they don't care about filming techniques, they only care about the content. And because the plot of Lost in Space failed, all of its technical achievements were buried along with it. The Wachowskis enjoyed all the glory with The Matrix, while Lost in Space was like someone ahead of their time who got forgotten instantly. This is an expensive lesson showing that, in the film industry, if a movie isn't good, no matter what technology you invent, the audience won't pay any attention, following their technical ambition. The production team didn't just stop at experimenting with filming technology. They also wanted to prove they were the leaders in the quantity of visual effects. 5. Held the world VFX record for exactly 1 year in the filmmaking world of the late 90s. Cramming visual effects VFX into a movie was considered the benchmark for a studio's willingness to spend. Lost in Space decided to go big, with a total of 750 VFX shots. This movie officially set the world record for the highest number of VFX scenes in a single film. In 1998, This number sounded incredibly massive and proud. New Line Cinema used this record as a powerful marketing gimmick to draw audiences to theaters. They achieved that title. But it didn't last long. This world record existed for exactly 1 year, the very next year. In 1999, George Lucas released Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. This movie mercilessly crushed Lost in Space's record with over 1,900 VFX shots. Looking back at this event, we see an ironic truth. Within 365 days, the title of Movie with the Most Visual Effects in the World belonged to a box office bomb, where the main character was a space monkey made of very fake-looking CGI. This record was like a temporary title. It showed that Hollywood at that time was blindly racing for VFX quantity. They focused on counting VFX scenes instead of paying attention to the story's quality. When Star Wars appeared, people completely forgot that Lost in Space once held that record. After showing off their technology, the studio tried to attract more audiences by inviting the original cast from the 1965 TV series back. But how they treated these legends is what's worth mentioning. 6. Only one original actor got to reprise their exact old role. The 1965 Lost in Space TV version was a legend to bait audiences. The producers of the 1998 movie version invited back a series of old actors like June Lockhart, Mark Goddard, and Angela Cartwright. Audiences thought they would see their childhood characters step onto the big screen, but reality was a harsh slap in the face. The director stripped away their entire old identities, throwing them fleeting, valueless cameo roles. They only used the faces of the old cast as a cheap display item. Only exactly one person was kept for their old role, Dick Tufeld, the voice actor for the robot. The chilling thing is that even though 30 years had passed, his voice in the 1998 version sounded exactly like in 1965, like an echo from the past. While humans were forced to become strangers, only the machine was allowed to be itself. This calculating treatment showed that the studio didn't care about paying tribute at all. They just wanted to exploit the old legacy to sell tickets. And of course, not every original actor accepted this superficiality. 7. The original Dr. Smith refused a cameo, and refused in a very Dr. Smith way. Jonathan Harris was the soul of the original 1965 version across 83 episodes as the cunning Dr. Smith. The 1998 production team naturally wanted to borrow his name, but instead of a worthy role, they threw him an insulting script playing a boss who appears in a flash, only to serve as background and be betrayed and eliminated by the new version of Doctor. Smith played by Gary Oldman. Jonathan Harris immediately refused. No diplomacy, no saving face. In TV Guide magazine, he poured cold water on the producers with the exact same arrogant demeanor as his character. I want you to know that up until now, I have never played a bit part or a fleeting role in my life, and I have no intention of starting now. Accompanied by a razor-sharp final statement, I play Dr. Smith, or I don't play anything at all. He chose to retain the pride of a monument instead of selling himself short for a few dozen seconds of a faded appearance. In contrast to that coldness, one of his colleagues craved to return, but the outcome was extremely bitter. 8. The original Will Robinson begged to play himself again and was rejected. Bill Mumy, the genius boy Will Robinson of the past, tied his entire childhood to this character. When he learned the 1998 script had a time travel segment featuring an older Will Robinson at the end, he was extremely thrilled without demanding a salary or making claims. Bill proactively approached director Stephen Hopkins, sincerely asking to be given that role to personally close the loop of the character of his life. But the director flatly rejected it. The reason he gave was that Bill's familiar face would distract the audience from the plot. The role was then given to Jared Harris. Irony struck when the movie hit theaters. The entire time, travel sequence was heavily criticized by audiences for being convoluted and confusing. Later, director Hopkins himself had to bitterly admit that scene was a failure. He rejected the person carrying the character's soul, just to protect a tedious, patched-up script. And that ungratefulness wasn't just reserved for Bill Mumy, but spread to all those who agreed to stay. 9. The entire original cast was changed to completely different roles if you're curious about how the original actors who agreed to return were treated. The answer is they were turned into lifeless puzzle pieces. June Lockhart, the gentle mother from the past, was thrown the role of a school principal appearing as a hologram. The movie even let the new Will character arbitrarily distort her holographic face like a cheap VFX joke. The two original daughters, Angela Cartwright and Marta Kristen, were pushed down to playing two reporters holding microphones standing in the background crowd. Mark Goddard, the strong major of yesteryear, wore a general's uniform, gave exactly one commanding line, and then disappeared completely. They brought the old actors back to the screen not to honor them or continue the story. They just exploited these people's faces as media bait, tricking older audiences into theaters. Wasting the original cast was already terrible. But the way the director exploited the movie's main star revealed a frightening level of indifference. 10. Matt LeBlanc was shooting a space movie and Friends at the same time, flying back and forth every week, when accepting the role of Major Don West. Matt LeBlanc was at the peak of his global fame thanks to the sitcom Friends. But that glory came at the cost of a physically draining schedule. For months, the Lost in Space crew filmed in London, while the Friends shooting schedule still took place in Los Angeles. The result was that every week, Matt LeBlanc had to constantly fly back and forth across the ocean, just after taking off the suffocating astronaut suit. He had to fly halfway across the globe to put on the naive smile of the character Joey. Audiences only saw the flashy action scenes. But no one knew the actor was forcing himself to endure extreme exhaustion after the flights. The most absurd thing came from director Stephen Hopkins. While supporting actor Gary Oldman even went to guest star in a few episodes of Friends. Hopkins confessed he had never seen a single episode of Friends. The director held a multi-million-dollar project in his hands, but was completely clueless about the terrifying pressure his lead actor was bearing every day. This superficiality didn't just stop at human management, but also dragged down a VFX disaster in production. 11. Blarp making a puppet looked too fake. Changing to CG, I looked even faker. In the 90s, movies often crammed in a cute alien creature to sell toys. For Lost in Space, it was Blarp, an animal with a shape mixed between a monkey and a reptile. Initially, the producers spent a large sum of money hiring a famous workshop to make an intricate mechanical animatronic puppet. However, when brought to the set, this puppet moved too stiffly and lifelessly, completely failing to convince the viewers. To salvage the situation, the director decided to cut most of the practical shots and replace them with computer-generated imagery, CGI. But due to extreme time constraints and imperfect technology, this CGI version looked even more disastrous than the initial puppet. Upon theatrical release, the computer-drawn Blarp was mocked by audiences as one of the worst VFX images of 1998. As for the expensive mechanical puppet, the crew just tried to salvage it by using its head for a few close-up shots so as not to waste money. Eventually, this costly prop was put up for liquidation auction along with other old items. Wasting money on broken props was just a minor error. The studio's biggest mistake lay in their overconfidence in a non-existent future. 12. New Line was so confident they signed a 3-movie contract for the entire main cast. The concept of a cinematic universe connecting multiple films like Marvel's today is very common. But few know that since 1998, New Line Cinema wanted to do the same thing with Lost in Space. Their confidence was so massive, it was blinding, even before the movie premiered. They forced the entire main cast to sign a committed contract for 3 more sequels. They also hastily signed large-scale toy manufacturing contracts and partnered with 2 book publishers to release tie-in comics. They painted a massive money-making scheme, but forgot the core thing. They had to wait and see if audiences liked the first part. The actual results threw cold water in the studio's face, as mentioned above. The movie only sold tickets in the first week thanks to curiosity. By the second week, revenue dropped disastrously due to being criticized for its content. Instantly, the contract for the next 3 parts was torn up. The toys nobody bought were left to rot on supermarket shelves, and the book/comic projects were abruptly canceled. A cinematic universe completely collapsed after just a few days in theaters. This collapse was a disappointment for the studio, and at the same time, an opportunity for critics to put this work on the list of the worst movies of the year. 13. The movie was nominated for a Razzie, then lost, because that year had too many worse movies if the Oscars honor the best movies. The Golden Raspberry Awards. Razzies were created to name and shame works with the worst scripts and acting. Being called out at this award is a huge embarrassment in the industry. In 1999, Lost in Space officially received a Razzie nomination for Worst Remake. However, the irony is that it wasn't even bad enough to win. The reason wasn't because this movie was good, but because 1998 had too many cinematic disasters hitting theaters at the same time. The film quality that year was so bad that the judges had to break the rules, awarding first place to 3 movies simultaneously: Godzilla, The Avengers Uma Thurman's version, and Psycho. Lost in Space was criticized for a patched-up script and forced acting, but when placed next to those 3 disasters, its level of badness still wasn't enough to grab the trophy. In other words, this movie was so bad it made the top worst of the year, but still faded away, bitterly standing in second place, despite failing in terms of awards. The studio actually didn't act sloppily. They poured a lot of money into production, especially in the practical prop-making stage. 14. The robot cost nearly $1 million to build in the first half of the movie. The design team wanted to create the robot looking like a heavy, terrifying combat machine. They didn't want to just use computer graphics, but wanted a real object on set for the actors to easily interact with. To do this, the studio hired mechanics to build a giant, armored suit equipped with real weapons. The cost to create this machine reached $1 million, a massive number exclusively for a single prop in 1998. This armor was so heavy they had to stuff a stuntman inside to control its movements for close-up shots. Computer graphics were only added during dangerous smashing action sequences. The studio was willing to throw away $1 million just to satisfy the visual aspect with a real mechanical prop, but forgot to pay to invest in a decent script. The result is this expensive machine got stuffed into an empty content movie, even though the movie's content was bad and spending was wasteful. We also need to look back at the truth about its revenue when the movie first premiered. Its achievement was more about lucky timing than actual merit. 15. The first movie of 1998 to hit number 1. Even though it premiered all the way in April, let's look back at the 1998 movie release schedule to see how lucky this movie got. Lost in Space hit theaters on April 3rd, meaning the first 3 months of the year had completely passed. From January to March, a series of good, well-invested movies premiered, but not a single one climbed to the number 1 box office spot. The reason was that the mega blockbuster Titanic was still attracting too massive an audience and blocking the highest position. It wasn't until April, when Titanic's viewership started dropping, that the charts had a chance to change. Lost in Space appeared right when its strongest competitor was running out of steam. Thanks to the audience's curiosity for a new sci-fi title, It accidentally became the first new movie of all of 1998 to rise to the top of the box office. This brief achievement didn't come from content quality, but merely because they chose the absolutely perfect release date. Lost in Space. 1998 is a practical lesson for the film industry. It shows that you can pour a ton of money into visual effects, hire famous actors, and even set a record for dethroning a legendary movie like Titanic. But if the script lacks depth and the studio only cares about selling toys, everything will collapse very quickly. The movie Left Behind is like a mess, where old actors were used as advertising gimmicks, and the main actor only did the movie to get money to pay off debts. What do you think about how New Line Cinema handled this project? Was their failure completely deserved? Please leave your opinion in the comments section, and if you like hearing true behind-the-scenes stories of famous movies, hit the subscribe button right below, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a like. Don't forget to comment the name of the movie you want me to find out the truth about for the next video. See you again.